Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. All right, a trinomial. An equation has three terms. For example, the standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c, has three parts. To solve these, we have three different ways of solving them. The first way is the factoring method. The factoring method is when you take a quadratic equation and factor it out into two linear equations. So you're taking it from quadratic to two linear equations and then solving it from there. That's the first way. The second way is called complete the square. This is a longer process. With a few steps to create a completed square equation. So what we do here is we start off with a quadratic equation, and then through a process of steps we'll convert it to an equation that looks like that. And then the third way is we'll be using something called the quadratic formula. So this one just uses a formula just to find the X-Intercepts, or the solutions. Alright, so this one here, again, it's just plug and play. This one always works. There's not much thinking. You just plug them in there and work it out. This one always works, but you may have to deal with, may work with fractions. This one only works if the equation is factorable. All right, so in this last one, we'll start off with the standard form, and after we finish this whole process, we're going to get x equals plus or minus some answers. It could be positive, it could be negative, or it could be a mix. Okay, so again, those are the three methods. Before we start doing those, let me first rediscuss the concepts of zeros versus X-intercepts. Zeros are the X values that make the equation equal to 0. In other words, it's a number. For example, x equals -3. That is a 0. So if I plug this number back in the equation, it becomes 0. The x-intercepts are locations where the graph of a function crosses the x-axis. In other words, it's a point. It has to have an x and a y component. But since it's the x-intercept, remember in chapter 1, to find the x-intercepts, the first thing to do, set y equals 0, and solve for x. These are the steps. So the x-intercepts will always be in that form. Alright, now when we talk about solving or getting an answer for these guys, these equations, we have to talk about the zero product principle. The zero product principle is the rule that tells us how to solve for a solution. Zero product. Product means multiplication. Notice what this says is, if I have a product of two numbers, a times b, and it equals 0, what has to be true about that? If a times b equals 0, then either a equals 0 or b equals 0, or a and b equals 0. So what we're doing here, how this relates to our purpose in this section, is we start off with a quadratic equation. Let's say we're factoring. After we factor, we'll get two equations. Let's say x plus a and x plus b. A times b. So this is like a, this is times b. So what we do is, then at this point, we take each of these separately and set them equal to 0. Since we don't know which one's 0, we set them both equal to 0. And then we solve. And those are our solutions. So that's the zero product principle. That's the whole purpose of it. All right. Let's talk about factoring. There's always a list. Factoring is when you simplify an equation into two or more linear equations. Now, when we factor, there are two possibilities. The first one, if a is is equal to 1, in other words, our ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 is actually x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. In other words, the leading coefficient is 1. And then second, if a doesn't equal 1. Remember, all of these have to be true because a can never equal 0. If a equals 0, then we don't have a quadratic, so a has to be a number. As long as a doesn't equal 1, what we're going to have here is now we're going to have this method. So it could look something like this. Now the dynamics, the rules, the procedures change. So what we're going to get first, we're going to look at when a equals 1. A equals 1. All right. Before we get into factoring, let's review foiling. In other words, I'm going to give you 4 equations. X plus 2 times x plus 3. X plus 2 times x minus 3. X minus 2, x plus 3. And x minus 2, x minus 3. Let's first review that process. We're going to use the FOIL here. So x times x is x squared. X times, they're both positive. X times 3 is positive 3x. Positive, positive is positive. 2 times x is 2x. Positive times positive is positive. 2 times 3 is 6. Combine like terms. 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay, there. We have that. X squared plus 5x plus 6. Next one. X squared. Positive times negative is a negative. X times 3 is 3x. Positive, positive is a positive. 2 times x is 2x. Positive times negative is negative. 2 times 3 is 6. Combine like terms, so I have x squared, negative 3 plus 2. 3 is bigger than 2, so it's negative. 3 minus 2 is 1, so it's minus x minus 6. Next one. X times x is x squared. Positive times positive is positive. X times 3 is 3x. Negative times positive is negative. 2 times x is 2x. Negative times positive is negative. 2 times 3 is 6. Whenever you get rid of parentheses, remember, combine like terms. So we have x squared. Positive 3 minus 2. 3 is bigger than 2, so it's positive. 3 minus 2 is 1x. Minus 6, so it's x squared plus x minus 6. That's an oops. X times x is x squared. Positive times negative is negative. 3 times x is 3x. Negative times positive is negative. 2 times x is 2x. Negative times negative is positive. 2 times 3 is 6. Combine like terms. They're both negative, so add them. 3 plus 2 is 5. Plus 6. Alright, so that's distributivity, or multiplying them. That's one way. Now we want to go backwards. Factoring is taken from the quadratic to two linear equations. But I want you to observe some things first. The first term is made up of the first parts of both parentheses. So x squared, that equals xx. X squared, xx. All right, that's the first thing I want you to look at. The second thing I want you to look at is look at the third term. So first, look at the third term. Notice they're either going to be plus or minus. Third term. If the third term is a plus, then both signs are the same. Both signs inside the parentheses. They are the first sign. So, if the third term, if the second sign if the sign of the third term or the second sign is positive, then both signs are the same. They're whatever the first, since it's positive, I know both signs have to be plus. Sure enough, they're both plus. Second sign's a plus, so look at the first, they're both minus. Sure enough, they're both minus. That's A. This is B. If the second sign is a minus, then both signs inside the parentheses are different. The larger number will get the first sign. Okay, if the second sign is negative, that means the signs are opposite, plus minus. And the bigger number gets the first sign. So it's a negative, so 3 gets a negative. Second sign's a negative, first sign's a plus, so that means I have different signs, and the bigger number gets the plus. So whenever we have a factoring part, we have this, we can tell pretty much how the shape of it's going to be. Now comes the hard part. Now comes the math part. Step 3. Determine what two numbers multiplied together will equal the last term, the third term. So think about it. What two numbers multiplied together will equal the last term. So what two numbers make up 6? 6 times 1, 2 times 3. Then, using the second sign, determine which pair of numbers from A above combine to equal the middle term. So this is the hard part. What two numbers multiplied together equal the last term? So we have two numbers that multiply together equal the last one. Using the second sign, it's either going to be plus or minus, either add or subtract. Determine which pair of numbers from A, from which you figure out here, can combine using that sign to equal the middle term. So, what times what equals 6? We have 6 times 1 or 3 times 2. So those are the possibilities that equal 6. Since that's a plus, 6 plus 1, does it equal 5? No, so that's wrong. 3 plus 2 equals 5. Got it. Same thing here. 6 times 1, 3 times 2. But now I'm going to subtract them. 6 minus 1, does it equal negative 1? No. Or forget the sign, just look at that. Does it equal 1? No. How about 3 minus 2? That equals 1. Okay. So the answer is 3, 2. But the bigger number gets the first sign. All right. So let's look at some examples here. Let's do a couple of examples, then we'll move on to A not equal to 1. Try x squared minus 2x minus 24. Look at your previous notes. This sheet here is going to be pretty important. So step 1. Since it's quadratic, we're going to try to factor. Okay, so this equals 0. It's got to be in standard form. The first term, what equals x squared? X times x. Step 2, look at the second sign. Remember, if it's plus, same. If it's minus, they're different. So those are from above. So since it's a minus, we have one that's plus, one that's minus. Note to ourselves, the bigger number gets the first sign. So the bigger number, because there are only two different numbers here, the bigger number gets the minus. Step 3. Two numbers multiplied equal third term. So what times what equals 24? So we have 24 times 1. We have 12 times 2. 8 times 3. 6 times 4. 7, 8, 9. Okay, so these are possibilities. That's the first part. The second part, what pair of numbers using the second sign equal the second term, or the middle term, the middle number. Okay, so subtracting. When you subtract the two numbers, they have to equal 2. So 12 minus 1 equals 20? No. 12 minus 2 equals 10? No. 8 minus 3 equals 5? No. 6 minus 4 equals 2. That's what I'm looking for. So as said here, the bigger number, since the first sign tells us a minus, the bigger number gets that sign. So 6 gets the negative sign. And that means 4 gets the plus. Step 4 is solve. So we have x plus 4. X minus 6 equals 0. Using the zero product principle, x plus 4 equals 0. X minus 6 equals 0. Subtract 4, x equals negative 4. Add 6, x equals 6. Well, we knew this already because whatever's inside the parentheses, the answer is always the opposite sign. So we know the answer is going to be negative 4. We know it's going to be positive 6. All right, so far so good. Let's try another one. X squared plus 12x plus 11 equals 0. First up, it's equal to 0. Excellent. So, step 1. Do the parentheses. What was in the first space? Since there's 2 of them, one goes here and the other one goes here. So place first term in first spot of both parentheses. Basically, that's all it's telling us. Step 2. Second sign. The second sign is a plus. Since the second sign is a plus, they're the same. They're whatever the first sign is. They're both plus in this case. So if the second sign is a plus, they're the same. They're the first sign. If it's a minus, they're different. Larger number equals first sign. So that's step 1, put the x's there. Step 2, the signs. Step 3, what two numbers multiply to give you 11? So we only have 1. 11 times 1. So this is the first one. We have to check that. What two numbers multiply to equal 11 has to equal the third term. And then, whatever that second sign is, 11 plus 1, does it equal the middle number? Yep, sure does. So, these are our two numbers, 11 and 1. Multiply two numbers to equal third term. Add or subtract whatever the second term or second sign is, the two numbers to equal middle number. So what times what is 11? When you add them equals 12. So we have x plus 11, x plus 1, so our answers are negative 11, negative 1. Alright, so that's factoring. Remember, if it factors, not all equations factor. For example, x squared plus 2x plus 9. What two numbers multiplied give you 9? When you add them, you get 2. Won't do, so not factorable or factorable. Right, now let's look at when a does not equal 1. So for example, let's say we had this one, 6x squared minus 7x minus 3. So again, has to be equal to 0. Has to be in standard form. Step 1. Let's do to save our brain pieces. Let's do the same thing. Last time in step 1, we took whatever's in the first and put in these first places. Let's do the same thing again. 6x, 6x. Put first term in first spaces. But only thing to make sure that this x squared, there's one x there, one x there. Step 2, look at the second sign. Since the second sign's a minus, the signs are different. Bigger number gets the first sign. So one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. So far everything is the same we've been doing all along. Step 3 is where it changes. Remember, our equation was 6x squared minus 7x minus 3. So in step 3, the first thing you do here, multiply the first and third terms. Just the numbers, because we don't care about the letters. So we have 6 times 3 equals 18. Now, this is the number we're interested in now. Find two numbers that multiply to equal that product. So we have to find two numbers when we multiply them that equals, in this case, 18. Alright, so we have 18 times 1, 9 times 2, 6 times 3, 4 won't work, 5, 6, these are only 3. And now we do the same thing as last time. Using the second sign, which pair of numbers, I should say, combine using the second sign to equal the middle number. Which, using the second sign, this is what tells us whether it's add or subtract. Which pair of numbers combine using that second sign to equal the middle number? So which one of these pairs, when we subtract them, to equal 7? 18 minus 1 is 17? No. 9 minus 2 is 7. 6 minus 3 is 3. So we know the numbers are 9 and 2. And remember, since the signs are different, the bigger number gets the first sign. So in our factored version here, we had 6x plus 6x minus. Since the first sign is minus, the 9 gets the minus. The plus goes to 2. Okay, so far everything is the same as last, except now we have one extra step. Step 4. Factor each parenthesis. In other words, what do they have in common? 6 and 2. They both have a 2 in common, so we take it out. Whenever you factor something out, to figure out what goes left inside there, since you took out a 2, divide both of those by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So whenever you factor something out, to figure out what goes left inside the parentheses, divide those by that. 6 and 9, they both have a 3. So I divide both of these by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Step 5. Remove the factored numbers. Just erase them, delete them. So that 2 disappears, that 3 disappears. 3x plus 1, 2x minus 3 equals 0. Now we can solve. 3x plus 1, 2x minus 3. So both equal 0. And by now we should have worked these against the opposite sign. So it's negative 1 over 3. Positive 3 over 2. Those are our answers. All right, let's look at another example. Let me see. Let me make one up here. All right, so here's another example. X squared minus 9x minus 2. Hold. 15. No, I'm sorry. It's negative 1. right, let's look at this one. So, first step, do the parentheses. So the first step is this. So I have 15x here, 15x there. Look at the second sign. It's a minus, so that means they're opposite signs. Step 1, first term. Step 2, second sign. Step 3. Now this is the one that causes the most trouble. So we take the first term, which is first number is 15, times 2. First number times third number. That equals 30. And then find prime factor pairs. So what two numbers multiplied equal 30? 30 times 1 equals 30. 15 times 2 equals 30. 10 times 3 equals 30. 6 times 5 equals 30. The next, okay, so then we start repeating ourselves. So that's A. Now B. Looking at the middle sign, the second sign. One number minus another equals, in this case, 1. It has to be the middle number. Since it's minus, put that there. So 30 minus 1 is 29. Not going to work. 15 minus 2 is 13. Not going to work. 10 minus 3 is 7. Not going to work. 6 minus 5 is 1. That works. But out of these two numbers, 6 and 5, since the first sign is a minus, the bigger number gets the second sign. Step 4. Factor both parentheses. They both have a 5. Remember, to determine what goes inside here, I divide both of these by 5. So 15 divided by 5 is 3x. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 and 6 both have a 3 in common. So I divide both of these by 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Step 5 is remove factors. So what we have now is 3x plus 1, 5x minus 2. Step 6, solve. 3x plus 1 equals 0. 5x minus 2 equals 0. Okay. The shortcut of this is to be opposite sign divided by that. Opposite sign divided by my coefficient. Or if you want to, do it the long way until you get comfortable. So you subtract 1 from both sides. Divide by 3. And the same answers. So it's whatever's easiest for you. Alright, so that's the end of factoring. I'm going to stop this tape here so I could start another one just to complete the square. Alright, good luck.